Hey, everybody. Welcome back to a new episode of the Happy Productive Podcast. I'm so excited for my guest today. I have a feeling that there's a chance that we might want to talk for 2 hours today because this is a topic that we both love so much. Welcome Michele Phillips to the show. Welcome, Michele.
Thank you for having me.
Michele, you guys, is the founder of Key Performance, and she's the author of Happiness is a Habit. I absolutely love this title. Simple daily rituals that increase energy, improve well being, and add joy to every day. Michele specializes in one of my absolute favorite topics, increasing happiness and individual performance in the workplace. And by using the latest findings of neuroscience, habits, and positive psychology, Michele shares the formula for happiness and success in an enjoyable and enthusiastic manner. All right, you guys, I know you're going to absolutely love her. Michele, I cannot wait to dive in. But bio is wonderful. Give us a little bit of the background of your story and how did you come to do this kind of work?
Thank you, Jennifer. Oh my gosh. I've listened to some of your podcasts. So, first of all, you're doing such a good service to the world. We need these messages. And I'm so excited because I do think we could talk for 2 hours. But so I worked as a salesperson at Verizon Wireless. And one of the very first classes, the very first class I got train for them to workshop was Franklin Covey's time management.
Hmm.
And what he did there was married your values and goals with your calendar. And it just shifted my whole life. It shifted the way I set goals. It shifted the way I lived. And after doing training there for so many years, I just followed the energy, right? So happiness, energy, being productive. And I started getting requests to do, workshops for other companies. So I started moonlighting in 97, and in 2000, I jumped ship and was doing workshops. And then coaching wasn't really even a thing then. And then coaching, and then I authored the book, Happiness is a Habit, because happy people really do have happy habits.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. And this is something that I see. I want to talk to you a little bit about creating the habit of happiness, because one of the classes that we teach is living in the higher emotions. And when you're living in those higher emotions, the joy, the love, the peace, right? We're not talking about anger, guilt, shame. Not that we don't feel those things, we absolutely do. But in your day to day, the emotional house that you have built, and which emotions you're spending the most time in, I do feel like is a huge contributor into your level of success, but also just your day-to-day sense of happiness, fulfillment, accomplishment. But it's not always easy. I think if you're stuck in those lower emotions of just how do I get into some of those higher emotions. So first, I know that was like 10 questions in one, but first, let's just unpack a little bit like the ideas behind happier people naturally excel, succeed. Just talk a little bit to that. I think there have been a lot of scientific studies on this as well to kind of back up these findings.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I love too. So I would call myself the playful sage because I have so much information that's scientifically proven, but also I want people to have fun. I want to make it easy. So when I wrote my book, Happiness is a Habit, the research said that when people spend time regularly doing something mentally, physically, spiritually, or emotionally for themselves, they just felt better.
Mhm.
So when I started looking at that research and looking what happy people do, right, I realized that's where we get out of balance because some people, when you work with an athlete who might be just a fabulous physical specimen, but spends no time on their emotional, mental state, or you work with an executive who's really successful at their career, but their relationships with their kids are suffering. So it's really looking at people as a whole and, what are you doing for yourself in those four areas? And I love to tell people you could take a walk in the woods with a loved one and hit all four, right? It's not that you have to people go, oh, now you want me to do all these different, extra work. And I'm like, no. I mean, I literally keep an easy button on my desk and I give it to all my clients because I want to make this so easy that you can't fail. And when you
Right.
give someone that's an easy step, do something so easy and then add to it and then add again. And then before you know it, people are so much more confident, and then they're also happy and fulfilled.
Right. Right. It is possible. It is possible. I think that sometimes I've had people who almost will sometimes tear you down a little bit because they're not happy. Why should anybody be happy? But almost just like, if you're happy, then you must not be like aware of all the bad things going on. Or if you're happy, you're just burying your head in the sand and you're not really, paying attention to the problems, or you're just a dipshit. I'm a blonde. So it's like, oh, she's happy because she's a blonde and she's just an idiot. None of it is true. And I have at times actually have found myself almost defending happiness as what I believe is a choice. And I believe it's a powerful, powerful choice that we make when we decide, you know what? There's very little in this world I can control, but I can control my reaction. I can control how I want to respond to a situation. I can control if I'm going to learn from something challenging. I can control my anger. I can work on myself. I can learn how to process emotions. Like, these are all things within my control. And I really do feel like that the choice to be happy is a very powerful and almost complex choice that we make. And I'm not talking about somebody who's had a lobotomy or,
Yeah,
those
no,
are just
you
happy
hit
all the
on so
time, right? Right?
many good things, and it really is a choice. And for me, even I'm playful and I like bright colors, and I don't want I will give you all the science, but I will have fun doing it. So
Yeah.
really owning that this is who I am, and I'm not this corporate serious, all facts person. And then the biggest thing I learned too is the difference between what I call sweat equity, right? And I call it glowing and flowing, right? Like all the research around flow, right? When someone gets into the flow,
Mhm.
right? They're really where an athlete is in the flow, or when you're just at your desk creating something and you're in flow, you're so much more productive and you're so much more helpful. And you mentioned when we first got on about those higher emotions, that if I can own that happiness is just as important as any other, goal that someone has, that when I am in those higher emotions, I am of great help to everybody, right? I'm a benefit to myself and I'm a benefit to my clients. I'm a benefit to the community, to the world at large. When I'm stuck in anger and frustration and looking at the doom and gloom report and everything that's going wrong with the world, I'm contributing to the problems, not changing the planet. So really, someone came up to me once at the end of a talk and said kind of what you said, how can you be so happy? Don't you see what's happening? And it's like, there's an example, if we were climbing a mountain, a couple of us, and the rock started to crumble, and one person went, oh my God, the sky is falling. We're going to die. And the other person said, I got this.
Hmm.
Take a breath, go slow, right? You want to be with the person who's confident and steady, not the one that's focusing on all the doom and gloom. So I
Mhm.
realized that holding on to this, I always say, I have all these crazy sayings, hold the light. When someone comes at me with negativity, when someone comes at me with doubting what I'm saying, I say, hold your light, Michelle. I don't have to, it's not a competition. I don't have to defend. I don't have to get into it with them. I just have to hold my light and know that they're not connected right now.
Yeah. And what do you say? I'm sure in your work you see and work with these people who say, "I want to be happier." And then they go and they do things and they're thinking it all leads to staying stuck in this just, dissatisfaction, constant disappointment, never really being fulfilled, not actually being happy. Yet they say, "Oh, I really want to be happier." Like, what's a step that they can take, or what is something that you recommend a person who, like, they say they want to be happy but they're not really doing anything to get themselves into that place? Like, what's a step or two that they can take to kind of start this process?
Yeah. Thank you. So my first book was Happiness is a Habit, and it's 44 habits, right? So and the habits are meant to be simple, and there's something as listening to a positive playlist in the morning, journaling, meditating, reading, you know, like it or not, successful people take time to tune themselves in the morning. Just like you don't need to know how to play piano to know someone's hitting a wrong note,
Right.
right? So it's almost like you need to tune your energy every morning. So my next book is all about energy, but which is not out yet. But it's taking that time in the morning to read something that inspires, motivates, or uplifts you. Listen to a happy, productive podcast, right? Exercise, right? You really have to put yourself first and know that the energy you create first thing in the morning is what you take with you.
Yeah.
Right. So, and not, I think the biggest things I find with my clients is realizing you will not sustain happy. Right?
Mhm.
It's an up and down life. People go, oh, I
Yeah.
did it for 3 weeks and then I gave up. I'm like, well, so then get back on track.
Right.
And
Right. And
when you're happy more often, then you're going in the right direction.
yeah, exactly, and that's really what we're talking about. I don't think it's realistic to be like, "I'm gonna be happy 100% of the time." It's just not realistic, it's not gonna happen, life happens, there's a whole slew of emotions. I really think it is about just generally, I'm in a happier place, generally, I'm living from a happier place because I find that when I am in a better place, I have a different perspective. I can pull the lesson out. I can see stuff that I can't see when I'm all stuck in it, and it's so funny that you mentioned that about like it taking time in the morning because one of my little secret things, not secret, but one of my little secret things I do is I have a playlist on my phone called Morning Inspiration. And I have filled it with songs that just get me empowered and they're fun. And I listen to this while I'm in the shower and doing my hair and getting ready because I have to get ready anyway, but why can't I also just like super duper motivate myself while I'm doing what I have to do anyway? So it doesn't feel like it's something else I need to add to my list to do today. I'm like, no, I just mash those two together and getting ready now becomes like one of the most inspiring times for me during a day. And it
Oh, yeah.
right, it makes such a difference when you start your day of listening to just songs that motivate and inspire you. Like, it's just like nothing could come at me today that I don't feel like I couldn't handle or learn from or grow from when you start the day like that versus, "Oh my god, it's Tuesday, another day to survive," kind of a mentality.
Oh my gosh, I took some notes. You hit on so many things. We could go so many different directions, but it's right. It's proving to yourself, which I love what you said. And that's what I try to do with my clients. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I want you to prove to yourself, oh, on the days I listen to music and when I'm getting ready, I feel better. Make the connection,
Yeah.
right? And I love that you said that too, because one of my habits is listen to audiobooks in the shower or music, right? So you're in there getting ready anyway. And then I'll give you some of the science, right? So in the
Yeah.
positive psychology world, the difference between optimists and pessimists through the research was that the way they explained the events of their life. So if a pessimist and an optimist both got laid off from their job on the same day, the pessimist tends to let it affect everything in their life and they see things as universal and permanent. I'm no good. I'm not smart. I can never get ahead. Where an
Mhm.
optimist doesn't let it affect everything in their life, it's one area of their life, and they believe it's temporary and specific. This company doesn't need me, but another company will. This is
Mhm.
temporary. So while I'm home, I'll work out, I'll try on some new recipes, so just the way they process events are different. So I always challenge people to look at the way you explain the events. And then what I love about Dr. Martin Seligman's work is optimism can be learned.
Oh, I love that. Optimism can absolutely be learned. What do you say to a pessimist who doesn't realize they're a pessimist? Like they're like, "Oh no, no, I'm not negative. I don't always see the bad side of things." But then like other people can certainly recognize, "Yeah, you kind of do. You always go to glasses half empty." But I'm just curious like, if you are a pessimist, I think it's possible to not necessarily realize that you are. So, is there any kind of a quick way of kind of like, "Hey, I have a little quick way I like to use, but I'm curious, like, what's a quick way to recognize, oh, wait a second, I'm being pessimistic or I'm being optimistic?"
Yeah, I think I wear many hats, right? So if I'm wearing my coaching hat or my, my workshop leader hat, right? Or my, I'm going to tell you straight out, right? You hire me to tell you the hard things, right? I'm not a friend. A friend says, "Oh yeah, you had a bad day," but a coach says, "No, let's like, you know, figure this out, right? So,
Yeah.
we're gonna move forward." But in my personal life, honestly, and let people, I try not to be the preacher because I do love this topic so much. I steer the conversation, right? I just do not participate in negative conversations.
Mhm.
And people will be like, "Well, you're being kind of quiet." And I'm like, "Because I don't want to go down that road with you because I know it's not going to get us anywhere." Or, um, you know, and some people ask me, "What do you think?" And sometimes I'll say, "Do you realize? Do you want some coaching, or I always ask permission when I'm in my personal life
Yeah.
because a lot of times people don't realize
Yeah.
that they're being negative, and I wanna make sure they wanna know because some people don't wanna know. So, again, I always ask permission. Again, when my coaching hat is on, that's why you hired me. I've been doing this so long, most of the people in my life just you teach people how to treat you,
Yeah.
and they know if they're calling me, they better bring in their happy game, right? Or I don't wanna see happiness isn't fake, it's bring me what's
Right.
going right in your life.
Yeah.
I'm happy to talk about what's not going right as long as we're gonna pivot and look at ways to help. Or I'm happy to be, I always say, in the mud for a little while, but I'm not going to stay there with you.
Right.
So I don't know. This is a long answer to a question, but not everybody's ready to receive the news.
It's so true. I have been a coach now for over a decade and I see this. Like I can tell. It's like you're asking me what I think and I will tell you because you've asked me, but you can tell when they're not really in a place where they can receive it. And I've even had clients who have come back to me years later and they're like, "Oh, Jen, you told me this and I couldn't hear it back then." And that's fair. I'm very patient. I will wait. You can wait it out with a client for as long as it takes for them to be in a place where they can receive, right? Yep.
I have two questions you just remind
Yeah.
me to that I give my clients, Jen. It's every couple hours, I want you to ask two questions. How are you feeling? And are you happy with your results?
Mm,
If you're feeling jazz and you're feeling I say glowing and flowing and you're happy with your results, keep moving. If
right.
not, something's up. Right. And
Yeah.
that's where the pessimists, they start to realize, oh my gosh, I am negative a lot of the time, or I am in frustration or hurry or whatever it is.
Yeah, so true. And I realized that the process of asking questions, it's so powerful. And this is why everybody needs a coach. In my world, everybody needs a coach, guys. And not just because I am one, but because I have worked with so many different coaches and they haven't all been great, but I've always learned something great no matter what. But like a coach can see it in a different perspective than you can see. And even when I work with my coach, it's like, okay, here's where I'm at and here's where I'm stuck and here's where I'm not getting that result. Help me. But I always have to be open to hear. If I can't hear it, then it's not going to get in. And even if I don't like it, it's okay not to like it. I need to think about it and process it a little bit. But like that's where the value I think of working with a coach can be so helpful that they are an outside perspective and can, talk you off the cliff or give you something else to think about. And this is where I love coaching because you can see it when you're not in it. But when you're in it, and even us coaches, like we have to work with coaches too because we get in our stuff as well. But if you want to get out of it and really get a different result, you have to come to that conversation being willing to try to hear it. Even if you're not quite there yet, at least if you make the attempt to really hear it, I think that's where the change and the transformation really, really comes from.
Yeah. And, I say glowing and flowing, right? So when someone really
Yeah.
negative gets in my path, I'm just going to glow and flow. Unless you want my help, I'm happy to help whoever, because I love this topic. Right. And even in my own
Yeah.
family, right? I always say this person in my family might be being negative or might be, but I, I work on myself. I have a coach. I am a coach. I know better. So it's not maybe not for me to change them, but it's for me to help them. It's for me to have some compassion and to know that maybe if I didn't have any training or coaching, I'd be in the same place. So I think it's a little bit of both, the compassion and again, if anyone asks me a question and they want to go down this path, I'm so happy, right, to have the conversation and to know when you're emotionally hijacked. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I'm emotionally hijacked. I need to get back on track. And how can I do that?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the most important things I've learned is that whenever I start like feeling sorry for myself, or I start feeling like I don't have any control, I'm powerless, I can't really make a change here, any of that woe is me stuff. Now I've been doing it for so many years, it's immediate like, uh-oh, you're in victim mindset, you're being a pessimist. You need to just take a moment to feel it. I really do give myself some time to feel it, but then I intentionally shift it. And that's when I feel like I think naturally I'm an optimist just naturally, but I mean, it doesn't mean that we don't have things that we deal with, but you can learn that. You absolutely can. This now I'm going to flip it around. Now I'm going to see the lesson. Now, wait, I look at what I can control, not so much of what I can't, all of those kinds of things. But that's helped me a lot of just like, wait a second, do I feel sorry for myself, or do I feel like I love your, glowing and flowing. Oh, that's like so exciting to me.
I love
Like
to
I want
play
to.
with
Uh-huh.
words. I even
Yeah.
named the voices in my head. So in my new book, I talk about, we have two, I always say we have two voices. One voice is like,
Yep.
hell yeah, Jen, you can do it. And the other
Yep.
voice is like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
So I named my voices Wanda and Grace. And Wanda is my voice of negativity. She's the victim. And even my husband and I, we laugh. He his is Bill. We both named our negative voices. And we were on a car trip going to Rhode Island once, and I was I don't even know, complaining about something. And he said, "We're opening the window. Wanda is not coming with us, and we're throwing her out the window." So I'm still seething because I was still in a bad mood for what I can't remember why.
Yeah.
And we're driving, and about 10 minutes later, I started, and he went, I thought we threw Wanda out the window 10 miles ago. Like, why are you? So we kind of, when you make the voice something outside of yourself, it does bring a little chuckle. It brings a little levity and realizing
Right.
we all have a negative voice, but we also have the positive side that we don't
Yep.
always tune into.
Yeah, it's so true. I love that you named them. That's so great. That is so great. I love it. All right, Michelle, this is just such a great conversation, and I do think that everybody really needs to hear it and needs to understand that happiness is actually an empowered decision that you can make, and that optimism can be learned, and that you can absolutely develop the habit of being in happiness more often. When you work with people, I'd love to hear like what do you feel like is like the top one or two biggest mistakes that you see people making in their own level of happiness?
Yeah. I've listened to some of your podcasts, and it goes back to that whole, that if I'm not busy, if I'm not busy and running crazy, I'm not valuable.
Yeah.
Right. And I there's a quote I use all the time. I say, busy people are boring. And that kind of
Hmm.
goes, oh, right. Because if you really have focus and goals, you should have time to work out, manage your finances, spend time with your family, make money joyfully. Right. So again, I always ask people like we kind of do the wheel, right? The life wheel. Where are you spending most of your time? And, people, oh, I'm spending all my time over here. There's always something that's a little out of balance. So it's like so when I work with my clients, it's the balance I'm going for. If you went to a restaurant and the table was moving, it would drive you a little nuts. Right. But our mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and even I could add financial balance is important. So when I work with people, it's not just about what looks good on paper and the next, the money and the next promotion, but it's will you survive your own success? Right? What's your happiness portfolio look like?
Yeah.
I just posted a video the other day, that song, Are You Having Any Fun? Right?
Mm.
Are you having
Yeah.
fun? Are you laughing? Are you having joy? So when I coach people, I think it's really refreshing to look at all of it, and that most people I see realize, oh my gosh, I am a little out of balance. Or like you said on one of your podcasts, I think I was just listening, sometimes it's hard to look, or nobody ever told me to look inside and
Yeah.
to see what my emotions are telling me, or what my childhood, upbringing is creating today. So it's really, I call myself the light lady. Somebody named me that. I shine a light on your life, and we look at, where do we need to improve? Where do we need to spend
Yeah.
a little more focus? And knowing that once you shine the light on something, it gets better.
Yeah, it really, really does. It's so interesting. I'm actually going through this right now. We've been pushing hard in my company to achieve a monthly revenue goal, and we hit it, but we hit it within just a few $1,000s. But it was so funny. Like I realized I kind of woke up because I was like, wait a second, I've been pushing to hit this goal for month after month after month, and we finally hit it. And now I'm realizing I'm out of balance. Like this is going to kill me to keep going at this pace. Like I can't do this anymore. And now I've had to shift. I hired a coach. He's like, "Hey, you're doing this." I'm like, "Oh, crap. Right. I'm doing that." And so now we're shifting. And the only reason I share this is that, business growth is tough, guys, but growing a business is tough, but personal growth is tough too. And all those lessons and stuff are in there and they're so, so valuable. But like, if you've been pushing towards something and you get to that moment and Michelle just like, wait a second, am I really happy? Am I really having any fun? Why am I after this goal? And here's the thing. Now I'm not giving up the goal. In fact, I made the goal bigger, but how I'm getting there, that part I changed because it's like, wait a second, I can't get there like this because this is not any fun, but I can change it. And now I can actually hit the goal, even a bigger goal, and I can actually have fun at the same time. So somebody I know out there listening is like, wait a second, what have I been doing? Like when I'm going after this, am I really happy in the way that I'm approaching it? And if the answer is no, it's okay to pivot the strategy and to go about it a different way. It doesn't mean that you have to like give up fully on the goal. And it certainly doesn't mean you have to sacrifice your happiness. Everything is figure outable, but sometimes when you're so stuck in it, it's really, really hard, which is why you need to work with a coach like Michelle or Jennifer Dawn Coaching to be able to kind of get that outside perspective and be able to kind of, pivot that strategy a little bit so you're not giving up your balance, your happiness. I love the wheel of life, that your life isn't so heavily weighted in one area and you're giving up all those other areas, because it really just breeds a lot of resentment and bitterness and anger when you have to give up things that you love to supposedly be able to achieve this goal that you've set.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. You don't have to give up the goal, right? And I think there's the paradigm shift of, we have to work hard. We have to
Right.
push. And if that doesn't work, push harder and work harder, and realizing that that model is outdated, right? And I love what you're saying. You're not giving up your goal. So I always tell people, we all have times in our life when we're going and we have a lot, balls in the air and we have to give our all. But then I say to people, find some breathing room on the calendar, put a half a day, put a day, look at your calendar and give yourself some white space,
Yeah.
right? And even though the next 2 weeks are going to be hard, you know that after that you have a day, or you have that light at the end of the tunnel. I think it's the people that don't give themselves that breather, right? I keep going back to the balance: mental, physical, spiritual, emotional. It's like eating. If I just kept stuffing my face, eventually I would, that wouldn't be good. But if I didn't eat, that's not good either.
Right.
There's this little
Right.
sweet spot of eating. There's a sweet spot of breathing. So it's really, that's where the energy comes in. And I think when I started doing mental, physical, spiritual, emotional activities, I started hitting this sweet spot so often that I was like, this is like drugs. Like, I mean, like good in a good way, like a natural
Right.
high.
Right.
But I was
Right.
having this natural high because your energy goes up.
It really
And now you're
does.
having more fun. So it's, again, in my book, Happiness is a Habit, I tell people to pick one thing and do it for 90 days. And people
Mhm.
don't like to hear that because they think, oh, I want it all now.
Right.
But if you take one small thing, like listening to your playlist in the shower, in the bathroom, like you said, and you do that for 90 days, and then you do another thing for 90 days, in 5 years, you have 20 positive, powerful habits. And habits are the things we do on autopilot. We don't even think
Exactly.
about
Exactly. It makes such a difference when you just do it and you step into this is who you are. It literally, it's who you become. It's not that thing that you're trying to force yourself to do every day. So I'm such a huge believer of the habits and such a big believer. One of our programs, this is exactly what we do over the course of 90 days, is we help people develop these we call them success habits so that it does just start to become part of like who you are. And I love how you mapped it out over 5 years. If you did this every 90 days, just how many positive things that you would do, and it would not just be a game changer, it's a life changer.
I love
Yeah.
that. It is a life changer. And, it's realizing, like you said, the goal is the goal. So when you have a goal and you don't believe you can get there, you're working too hard, it's frustrating. But when
Yeah.
you have a goal and you feel like you're making progress, it's a very different feeling.
It's
So it's giving yourself the
fun.
credit for the steps, right?
Yeah.
I took
Absolutely. I think that's just so part of the glowing and flowing. I love it. I love to work. I really and truly do. And when you're just glowing and flowing and you're working, but then learn to recognize when you're like, okay, that's good. It's okay to stop today. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to go have some fun and then get back into that space tomorrow. And then it almost just becomes, again, part of who you are and how you work. I love it so much.
Yeah, you're even
Flow.
hitting on something, just those mini breaks during the day.
Yeah.
I laugh. I work for myself, and even though you work for yourself, you still put a lot of pressure on yourself.
Hmm.
So whenever I feel myself like the fight and flight goes on and I'm getting stressed, take a walk, get up from the desk. I live in a very small town, so we have to pick up our mail. So the post office is 10 minutes from my house. So I walk to the post office, say hello, pick up my mail. And then it's like a reset in your day.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
realize that, when we're just digging in, that's when we're getting tighter and tighter and tighter. So being able to release, even
Yeah.
if it's just 20 minutes.
Yeah, so powerful. And honestly, you just get so much perspective, I'm sure, on that walk and like you can solve problems and just do things that you can't do while you're sitting at your desk completely stressed out. I love it. Michelle, thank you so much for being here with me today. Can you share with everybody like where they can find you if they want to get a little more Michelle than what they've experienced on today's show?
Thank you, Jen. Yeah. So Instagram is my just at Key Performance, which is the name of my company, Key Performance. I've been doing corporate training for, oh my gosh, 25 years. But if you join my website, my mailing list, www.key, the number two, unlock.com, I have my 5 super habits that like energize your results. Right. And again, I love what you said. They're life changers, not just game changers. So it's keytounlock.com and it's a 2. And I would love to, connect with whoever's listening. And I would love to be, back on again, Jen. This is such a fun conversation and it went by so quick.
Oh, absolutely. This is wonderful. So, you guys, we're going to put all of Michelle's information in the show notes. Please go check her out, get her book, check out her website. It's so vitally important to develop your habits of happiness. I'm obviously my podcast is Happy Productive, and it's all I named it that specifically because it is truly about being in a state of happiness and how we will be so much more productive when we work on that stuff for ourselves. So, thank you so much for being here with me today, Michelle. I so appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to have this conversation. Thank you for doing the work you're doing.
You're so welcome. All right, you guys, thank you. Hopefully, you heard something here today that will help you. Please don't just sit on it. Get up and do something to take some action on this and to increase the happiness in your own life. That's it, you guys. Get out there and have a happy, productive day. Bye.